what is the absolute cheapest way to get divorced if everybody is getting along with each other?
Not get divorced? Ah. Oh, this is a tricky one, Rob, because here's the thing. Okay, there was a client once who said, Rhonda, when we think about the word amicable, which I know is a word that a lot of people are putting out there, right? It means devoid of conflict. So if we think about, as you're going through this process, to think that there isn't ever going to be any conflict or any disagreements, I just don't think is realistic. I mean, we can manage it, but to think that there isn't going to be anything that you disagree about. Now, you might be getting along now, which is great, right? But the question is, what if you get down the path and all of a sudden now things kind of go off the rails? So there's a lot of different options for people. And I think, I always approach it to say, let's look at the situation. Let's look at the different paths to get divorced. Let's talk about the pros and cons of each, and then figure out what is going to be your next best move. A lot of times people will say, well, we'll do something, we'll do the online forms. We'll do the pro se, meaning we don't have attorneys. We'll do mediation. It just depends, right? I mean, you want to make sure that things are done properly because at the end of the day, property division is final. So when the divorce is final, if you realize you shoulda, coulda, woulda, it's kind of too late, right? Um, I I always look at it like managing risk. If things are going well, great. Then maybe mediation is a good place for you. Make sure you've got a good mediator, make sure you've got a good team, make sure you understand the pieces. We don't have to overcomplicate it, but I also think people just need to have a realistic view of, okay, not if we have issues, but when. How are we going to handle them? What's our plan? Because I most of the time people get into it and it's way more challenging and there's a lot more details. Um, and this is like I said, this is all I've done for the last 10 years and I'm always learning something new. There's always so again, just kind of keeping that in mind too. Like you want to just make sure that things are done properly.
Right. You cannot be fooled by that. There is no divorce that is, whistling, everybody's fine. Once you get into the weeds, you start spending some money, you start looking at finances and when you're going to see the kids. It's natural, you're human, that there is going to be a little bit of conflict. So I think it's important not to just say, hey, we get along, let's just sign the papers. You still should be talking to professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times too, there's usually one person that is, hey, we're getting along as long as I agree to whatever the other person is saying and go along with whatever their plan is. So, yeah, just some things to be keeping in mind and again, making sure that you're being as proactive as possible and again, just make sure you've got the right team of people, whatever that looks like. It's kind of like, the therapy component, right? As the emotional aspects are higher, you may dial in and need to meet more frequently with the therapist. As things settle down a little bit, you might be able to back off. That's how I like people to look at their entire team. Like you can dial it up, you can dial it down, but having that essential team legal, financial, emotional at the ready. Having them at some base level involved, I think really does put people in the best position possible.
Well, this is great. I'm sure you hear this a lot. I wish I knew Rhonda when I was going through my divorce because you make it sound a lot calmer, a lot more. You're on the same team. So I appreciate you being on and educating people about this. Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Instagram at Rhonda Noordyk or my website, wfwcdivorce.com.